Well, hello everybody. Welcome back for part 2 with my friend Christian Palma.
Hello, everyone. And hello to Tim.
I loved how last time you were like,
Yeah. Should have zoomed in on it. I want to see that clip.
yeah.
It'd be funny.
So I invited Christian back for part 2 because last time we talked about his friend Sean Luke and how suicide claimed his life. And just the aftermath of what Christian went through and how he felt and how he dealt and how it's still affecting him to this day. In part 2, we're talking about Christian's own journey through depression and suicide because that stuff doesn't just leave you.
Mm-mm.
It's kind of tough. I can't really imagine. I've never really dealt with suicide or depression myself, or none of my friends have either, at least that I know of.
That they've expressed, yeah.
I think that's a big one that they've expressed.
So before, I guess, going into the story, what, question do you have? Or questions?
Well, and if you guys have not seen it, I think it's going to be over here. Check out this video for part 1 where Christian talks about his friend, Sean Luke. But as you were talking about it, just about feelings of I should have, or I could have, like that Saturday morning when you guys are supposed to hang out and your mom was like, nah, we'll pick him up after we get done with our errands. And then you found out that he had taken his life and you thought to yourself, man, if we had just gone to pick him up, if I just talked to him a little bit longer on Xbox Live or whatever you guys did back then, and just how you felt and how you responded when his mom on the phone said, I'm so sorry, honey. I guess I want to go to the few years following thereafter. Like, what was life like for you after Sean Luke took his life? And how did that turn into your own or influence your own forms of depression?
It started, I'd say, relatively quickly after the incident. Before that, like I'd said, we had sort of not really gave it any thought or anything. We sort of made our comments on what we thought people who took their life were like and sort of their strength levels. But after that, I guess you could say it sort of opened a door mentally, like, oh, this is a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not happy or I don't feel satisfied, I could just stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really fully thought about it before then. My mom said that when I was younger, I was around 6 years old, I had an interaction with my biological father at Lowe's, the hardware store, where we saw each other in public and I wanted to go with him. And he wound up sort of rejecting that because he was with someone else. He's like, I can't take you with me. And on the way back home, my mom said that I tried jumping out of the vehicle at the age of 6. That I said,
oh, wow.
She said that and I don't really remember this. I only remember going to therapy after.
So were you trying to, looking back after the fact, were you jumping out of the vehicle to commit suicide or just to try and get to him?
No, she said that I said that he doesn't love me anymore. I'm not good enough. And I tried jumping out.
Oh, wow.
And see, like I said, I don't remember that at all. And I called her this morning just to verify, like, okay, you said I was how old? When did this happen? But I do remember going to therapy. That's why one of my favorite colors is orange. The little therapy place we went to was in Thomasville, and I don't remember the name of it. But they had this little animal sort of toy bin, and they were these little plastic things you could pick up, and there was an otter, and it was orange, and I absolutely loved it. Loved playing with that one specifically, so orange became my favorite color. And so I don't really remember that incident, and after that, they put me up on Wellbutrin at the age of 6.
Oh, what is that? Antidepressant?
Well, it's an antidepressant, okay. Yeah. And then I was going to that therapy, my mom said, for about a year. Mm-hmm. And so that was, I guess, my first run-in with a suicidal attempt, although I don't remember it, so I don't really claim that to be my number one. Mm-hmm. But after Sean Luke had passed away and committed suicide, my brain started like running and wandering, what are the possibilities that I could do it? Because when you're a teenager at the time, I'm 13 turning 14, or I think I'm 14. No, actually I'm 14 turning 15, I believe. Mm-hmm. So the hormones are developing a bit more. You get a bit antsy, sort of thinking, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? I know what I don't want to be, and you have those images in your head. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, growing up, my mom and I didn't have the greatest relationship, as I had said before, and we were kind of mean to each other. She didn't have patience sometimes where she felt like she should have, and I didn't have the respect enough to listen sometimes. I was kind of defiant, very much so, just because, and showing out because I wanted attention. I wanted love. I didn't feel good enough. So one of those things, I guess that was maybe the catalyst, especially already not feeling good enough for my biological father, who, for whatever reason, when I was younger, I just had a very strong attachment to. I do remember that. I remember when I was younger, I used to wait by the door for him. Like, he's coming home, he's coming home.
Man.
Yeah, I do remember that. And so, and then going to school and people be like, oh, what does your dad do for work? Like, I don't know my dad. Things like that. And there were some other kids that I could relate to. So we talked a lot about our moms. And my mom was my hero, especially, I think when I was younger, my biggest hero was my oldest brother, Donnie, who we were just talking about. Was definitely he was so cool. He used to drive this.
I think that Donnie's really cool.
He's so cool. When we were younger, especially, I used to want my hair cut like him. He used to wear this New York Yankee hat or some other hats. He'd wear them backwards. He'd drive around. He was so cool just the way he drove.
He had a stick shift, didn't he?
Yeah. It was this, believe it was this stick shift. I think they're called sidekicks. Mm-hmm. It's like this little square Jeepish looking car. It was green. I loved it. I loved riding in it. He was so cool when he listened to old school hip hop and other music. And he was just that guy, you know, people, especially growing up, people are like, oh, Donnie's your older brother, right? And I'm like, I already know his shadow's over me. I'm like, yeah, but I'm the better looking one as a joke. But he was definitely my figure when I was younger. I didn't have much to latch onto.
So do you think you saw him as a father figure?
He would say that he sees me as a son figure, a childlike figure. I don't know. When I was younger, I saw him more as my brother, as a role model. So I don't think as a father figure, but I did love him and gave that love that I would have had spare left over for a father figure. Mm-hmm. Donnie definitely got that.
Yeah. So everything with Sean Luke happened. You were about 14, 15. Mm-hmm. And in the aftermath, I'm sure just going through, especially at school, because we've recently watched Stranger Things. Have you seen it?
Love it.
You know how they went to school and like one of the kids had disappeared. And it's like, well, where's your friend?
Yeah.
Was there a lot of that going on?
No. So the whole school knew.
Mm-hmm.
I got calls after that happened on that Saturday, and people were like, "Is it true? You know, what's going on?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, it is." And some people are upset, and I have to put my own pain aside to sort of help them understand, like, you know, there's nothing we can do. Yeah. And I remember going to school that Monday. And it was like really, it was very hurtful, but it was also kind of nice to see our school sort of gather together a bit for it. I got a lot more support than I thought I was going to. I didn't want to go to school that day. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to at all, but where else was I going to go? I know I didn't need to be home by myself. At a young age, I knew that. And sort of went there. I walked into the cafeteria and I feel bad. There was this girl there and somebody misheard what she said. So 'cause people are trying to console me. I have my friends. We're all at our cafeteria table and I'm just sitting here like, I don't want to go to class. I don't want to go to class. I got to do this. How am I going to get through this? And then somebody like walked up and was like, Christian, I heard this girl over here at the corner table said this, like, if you knew the guy, you wouldn't be crying. And I remember being enraged.
Oh no.
Enraged and instantly like instant locked on, like, where's this girl? And I walked over and I was aggressive with her. And she said, no, that's not what I said. I said, if you knew the guy, you'd know why everybody was crying. But without even thinking, I didn't hesitate. I instantly went aggressive mode. And I was like that for a very long time after I had this.
Was that characteristic of ways you'd behaved previously, or was that something new?
When I was angry, yeah. That'd be characteristic when I was angry. And especially, this is my first, Sean Luke was my first death that I had ever experienced to a core. I had had a grandmother pass away before, great-grandmother pass away. That was a mother-like figure to my mom. Mm-hmm. And I saw how that did her.
Well, it's also different, especially when somebody's old. Mm-hmm. It's like you kind of expect it.
Yeah, I didn't understand the concept. My mom told me she was around her 90s.
Yeah.
So when she said she'd passed away, to me that was normal. Like, okay, that sucks. I imagine how much it hurts. That's someone you love, but that was to be expected. And so with this, it was unexpected. It was like, just waking up one day, and I didn't wake up that day, and it had happened already. It did happen while the timeline was it happened sort of like earlier in the morning before most people were awake. So by the time I was waking up, the action had already been committed. So, going to school and had that aggression and everything like that, he was my first death, knowing I wouldn't say he was going to come back.
Now, you said that that day when you went to school and everybody was gathering in moment of silence and all that stuff, you said it was also hurtful. What was hurtful about it?
It was hurtful because there were other people I knew that knew him, and they were hurting. And so there was also a comment I had heard from somebody where we were the Spartans at Central Davidson, and for our fallen Spartans, we would put their names on the cuffs of shirts or in some way have some form of memorial on the class shirt. And this guy, and it could also, we're in high school, so gossip goes around. You don't really know who's saying what. Some people like to stir drama. They see it. They're not a part of it. They go, "Ooh, how can we start a fire?" But a comment came up to me, said that this individual had stated, "Well, he better not be on the class memorial if he took his life." And that sort of really upset me. I didn't go seek him out because I knew I would have gotten into a fist fight. Yeah. And I'm not naturally by default a fighter. I'll fight if I have to. But in that moment, I definitely feel like I would have went against my own moral standing and been aggressive, and I didn't want to be. And I didn't honestly have the energy for it. I was just so upset. We went to first period. My first period was drafting, and we were sitting in there, and there's that kid beside me. His name was Billy Athey. He was really sweet. Always let me listen to his MP3 player at the time. He was like, "Hey, do you want to listen to it today?" Because he knew. Everybody knew.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah." And before I'm about to put it in and listen to it, we would the intercom came on and said, "Students, if you are grieving the loss of so-and-so, Sean Luke, not so-and-so, please make your way down to the guidance counselor office, and we can have a group session about it." And I didn't want to go, but people in our class were like, "You need to go." My teacher, Miss Weaver, also was like, "You can go, honey, you can go." Yeah. And I was just like, okay. And I remember getting up, walking out of the hallway's empty. So I'm like, okay, nobody's here. Walking to it, and then I saw a couple people, a friend named Devin and a couple other people, and we sort of like made our way slowly.
Was that comforting? Seeing everybody kind of coalesce?
Yeah, it was comforting, and it was more than I thought. It was around like 10 people who were really close, and so we talked about it, but most of us just sat there and cried. And the guidance counselor did his best to sort of let us know that, if you're having these thoughts, if you're having these issues, please reach out. You're seeing what it's doing to other people. But again, tying back to like what we said last week, sometimes people talk and all you hear is womp, 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 womp. And that's most of what that day was. And then what really got me was we had an English class, and I can't remember her name, but she was a great English teacher. And when I went in there, Sean Luke had he used to have the period before me or after me, and he had a desk. And when I walked in, all the kids were like, sort of like, go in there, go in there. And his desk was signed. Everybody had signed it. Oh, and so I remember Gavin Edwards, sweet as he could be, love that guy, had told me, "Hey man, we're going to talk to the school and we're going to donate this desk to you." And that meant the world to me.
Oh my gosh. Did they actually do that?
No, the school didn't let it go. The school didn't let it go. But they didn't use the desk.
Yeah.
That English teacher didn't let that desk be used. And that meant a lot to me too. That support really meant a lot to me. And there were people I was friends with that I didn't really know knew Sean Luke like that. And they were upset about it too. And
yeah, well, I mean, coming from that limited worldview of just being kids, stuff like that's new. There's a lot of, people in that age frame or whatever, that's where you have your first kiss. A lot of kids lose their virginity at that age. They have their first cigarette. They go on their first dates. They get their life. It's all new.
Right.
And so it's like, we've never been through that before. So how do you navigate this? But something you just said kind of sparked interest. You said that when you were with that group, everybody was just sitting there crying, but that entire day, everything just felt like wah, wah, wah. Do you feel like that day was more about feeling than people just trying to comfort you by telling you not to feel?
No, people weren't really telling me not to feel. I think because I was still processing it. That was most of the reason why. Like I was hearing people, but it's sort of like somebody speaking to you from an inaudible window on the other side. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but like a window where you could barely hear what's going on the other side, but words are being spoken. And you can vaguely pick up on it, but most of the time I'm just sitting there like, wow, this is real.
Was that comforting at all, or would you have preferred them to just be present?
For me, I'll say, it was comforting. Yeah. I would say it was comforting. Some people might have done it a little bit more than I'd like. Like, I don't really like to be touched when I'm upset. I like to sort of do my own thing, but I do like somebody being present, but I don't like to be looked at either. It's like one of my things, like I like to grieve in your presence, but let me grieve without you sort of looking at me. And I don't know what that is. Never really fully dug that up.
I feel like that, at least for me, when I'm going through something, somebody's looking at me, it almost feels like there's an expectation for me to respond a certain way.
Maybe, yeah.
Or like they're recording.
Yeah, kind of like mentally.
Yeah.
They're just like, I'm about to upload this to my brain. But some people had comforted me the way I wanted to, doing that. Sort of like from across the street, I have a god brother. His name was Eddie, and he had a friend named Nestor. And when they figured out, he remember him calling me, being like, "Hey, I'm coming over right now." And that was that Saturday. And they came over. Both of them came over, and they sort of grabbed me by the shoulder, and they just sat there with me. And like I said, I didn't like to be touched, but I really trusted Eddie a lot. I love Eddie. So when he grabbed me and, sort of just sat there with me, they stayed quiet, and I just cried. And that was probably one of the best cries I had at that time, because of I wasn't alone and I felt protected. Like, I knew I was vulnerable, but I knew both of them weren't going to let nothing happen to me. So it was a way for me knowing I wasn't going to be judged. And I think that's important too for when you're grieving, being in an environment where you're not going to be judged, or you're not going to have to worry about, I need to keep up this facade that who I am and my identity. I can just let it out. Sort of like a drain to a shower. Just let it out.
Yeah. Like how you said, I was vulnerable, but I felt protected. Protected. It's like, maybe this is a guy thing, I don't know, but I feel like whenever I see somebody that's going through something difficult, I really just want to fix it.
Yeah. And
it really frustrates me when I can't fix it. Especially something like this, it's just like, can I just make Sean-Luc come back to life? Please, just that would fix everything.
That would probably fix a good portion. I mean, it'd be weird because it'd be like he'd be blipped back into existence from like when Thanos snapped his finger. So he'd be like 15 and be like, well, here's how taxes work.
Yeah.
But no, definite. But at the end of the day, I do think that there was a lot of personal growth that came from it. I really wish I could have had a lot of personal growth with him here by my side. But fortunately enough for me, I had people who did show like they cared, and they loved me during that. That day was crucial. That Sunday, it sucked too. Don't get me wrong. But that Monday, going to school, resuming life, as some would say, it was very hard to deal with.
Yeah. How long did it take for you to feel normal again?
To be honest, I still don't feel normal. And that's not me lying or trying to stretch the truth or anything. I feel different. I definitely, like I said last week, it was more of like my inner childhood was gone. So now I'm pushed into another person. The Christian when Sean-Luc was alive and then the Christian after the fact are two completely different people. And it feels like if you have a progress bar of 100%, going through that experience with that person who meant the world to me at the time, I feel like now my happiness is capped at 75. So now there's a permanent part of my progress bar that is forever gone. That's just how it feels like. Now there are moments where something crazy will happen in my life. We'll have a good moment and it sort of goes to 80% maybe. But then my brain sort of ticks and goes, man, he really would have laughed at this. We would have had the greatest time of our lives.
Yeah. So navigating this, you were about 14, 15. Sean-Luc took his life. There was obvious aftermath and fallout. Talk to me about the next 5 to 10 years, because you've had your own struggles with depression and contemplated suicide. First of all, I guess, what led up to that? Was it losing Sean-Luc that kind of tipped the scales in that direction? Were there other things? Like, what was it that contributed to the depression?
So there were catalysts, I think. There were seeds that were planted way earlier than this. And then sort of Sean-Luc and his experience was the watering can to grow everything and let it be known. So, because before, like I said, I was an emotional kid that would vocalize when I was upset and things like that. But I didn't really know how to express either, healthy at least. I didn't know how to cope. And I was also medicated a bit when I was younger. So when you're on Strattera or Ritalin, Concentra Wellbutrin, those are just the ones I can remember, you sort of kind of zombified state and you're really just doing what you got to do, or sometimes you're just hyper-focused, but not hyper-focused with the energy. Because I'd say I'm eccentric. I'm very much a happy person by default. even though I can sometimes have a bit of pessimism to me, I do like to be happy. So what I guess started it was, like I said, the negative relationship with my mother, some of the things that were said back and forth, and I really wish that we could go back and we could change that. It wasn't healthy and it wasn't loving. There was lack of patience from both sides. There was the fact that my father figure, my biological father, wasn't there. And then the father figure that I did get at the time, Sergio, I loved him to death, don't get me wrong. But at the moment, it didn't feel like, he was doing a job that he really shouldn't have been doing. Where was my real dad? Why wasn't my real dad here to protect me, to teach me how to fight and deal with bullies and to deal with things, to learn how to talk to girls? I never knew how to talk to girls when I was younger. I mean, I talked to them like they were people, but, wanting to get a girl to like you, what is that?
Does he know now, Morgan?
So I just, one of those things, and those are the things. And then I'd say also being in the home alone, it wasn't it was a house. It was a house, but there was some clutter. There was some disorganization. Sometimes these debt collectors would call because money was mismanaged.
Oh, I've been there.
And they would call, man, and they'd be like, "Hey, is your mom home?" Well, they'd say her name. And not like, "Hey, is your mom home?" No, but they'd ask, "Hey, is so-and-so there?" And I'd be like, "No, she's not here right now. Can I take a message?"
Did you ever have to lie for your parents?
All
that was such
the
a weird
time.
feeling.
And I hated it. Because I had sometimes they would lie to me. They would try to scare tactic me. All right, well, if you don't call us, they're gonna, we're gonna have to take your house. We're gonna have.
They would say that to you as a
I would. I remember that we had Lexcom. That's all I remember is we had Lexcom, the phone company, and I remember that we had this little pantry area, but it wasn't really a pantry in the kitchen, and our phone sat there. And I remember picking it up, and that guy said that to me one time. I was like, "We've been trying to reach her, man. Oh, she's busy. She's working. All right, well, call us back because we might have to take the house, or we'll do something." And that's unethical. It's illegal, I think. Shouldn't be saying that to a kid. But I mean, he's doing it because it's not his job. I'm not trying to create an excuse for him. But in a way, he sees a vulnerable individual that may be able to help him reach his end goal. So of course, him being a shady individual, you're shady. He wind up sort of doing a fear tactic on me.
Yeah.
And so other people would call too and say like, she owes us this amount of money, or this is this. And I'd give the message to my mom, and then sometimes not seeing any action take place terrified me. Now, she probably was working on it in the background. I didn't have the privy information to really go into her account and see what was going on.
Well, what was that like for you, knowing that she was in a place where she was being stretched beyond her capacity? Obviously, you couldn't do anything about it, but you were you had to relay information that, at least in my experience when I've done that, I felt like I was just adding to their stress.
That's exactly what it feels like.
Did you feel like you were just...
I felt helpless.
Yeah.
And I felt also a bit like, I really want this new toy that just came out on the TV so much, but now I can't ask for it because we might lose our house.
Yeah. Oh, dude. So I feel kind of the same way because, even as an adult, I'll want things and I feel like I'm not good enough for it, even though it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Even if it's something small, like, oh, I want this shirt, and maybe it's $5 more than I'm comfortable spending. And we just came back from Asheville, and we went to all the outlets there, and actually got the sweatshirt there for like $25.
$25.
Hey. And whenever we were looking around, she's like, "Oh, honey, you should get it." And that's good to hear, but at the same time, I'm like,
do you want to?
Me? I deserve this? Or no, I can't. We have other bills to pay. We have this and this. And I feel guilty for getting stuff, Like, she got me this camera for my birthday, and it was pretty expensive.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think it's one of the more expensive gifts she's ever bought me. And part of me was like, man, that could have been $2,000 to pay on our mortgage, and yet, I feel bad.
But think of all the work that you're doing because of this. How many people are you helping?
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, young you wanting a video game or a toy or something was the same way.
Can I get this? You want to ask. I did ask. I still did ask a bit because I'm a kid. I'm young. Maybe my mom got lucky and got a bonus or whatever because you see it in the movies.
Yeah.
So that did mess with me a bit mentally as a kid, and not having anybody there to sort of protect me from that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my older brother was already out of the house and he was starting his family and all that. And so not faulting him in any way, shape or form, but he just wasn't there for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then my stepdad's working and then my mom's working. I'm home alone, or, you know, I got a babysitter. That didn't work out great. So, there was that. So sort of leaning up, there was the relationship with my mom. There was the relationship with my biological dad being absent. There was the sort of mild anger that why do I have a stepdad, which ties into the father thing. Mm-hmm. There were these other issues where with the debt collectors and things, I've always worried about money since I was younger. And because of it, it's made me very much like, I have $1, but I don't really have $1. Like, it's not there.
That's healthy to a degree.
Right.
It
to a
depends on the heart behind
degree,
it.
to a degree. But because of that, I've known people to sort of make comments like, bro, you have a little bit of money, just get it. And I'm like, no, I can't afford that. But like, you got paid. No, can't do it. Can't do it. It's food, eat it. No, can't buy that. I'll sit here and I'll take a fry or two. I'm not like that to a degree anymore, but I used to very much be that way because I was afraid of like debt collectors. For whatever reason, debt collectors. So I also had a babysitter lock me in a basement when I was younger. This is why I'm terrified of the dark. So I think that's also another issue. Having that, my mom would leave and then the babysitter would let me sort of watch one TV show and then she'd put me in this dark basement and lock it. And then she had this German Shepherd that would sit at the top of the stairs. And if I ever made noise or did anything, it would stay at the door.
Why would she do that?
I don't know.
Just being mean?
I don't know, I guess. I mean, yeah. So it's a complete dark basement and she had an aquarium on that side of the room. I feel like I'm there. That side of the room. And it was there and it would make noise and stuff. And then my mom wound up putting two together. She said one time I was sleeping and I was saying something about the lights. So she had asked the babysitter about the lights. And she was like, oh, there's lights in the basement. And then my mom went down there and was like, have you been keeping my son locked up here? And the lady sort of admitted to it. And my mom pulled me from out of there. Mm-hmm. And I do remember the babysitter toyed with me a bit too, because sometimes she knew I loved Scooby-Doo. You'd hear the Scooby-Dooby-Doo on the TV and I'd watch it. And then she'd sort of be like, all right, now turn over, face the couch, face the inside. And she would make me sit on the inside of the couch, watching the couch, listening to the show, not getting that gratification of watching the show.
Oh, she's just sadistic or something?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It was horrible. It was horrible. And I don't know how long I dealt with it, but I do have some like snapshot memories. Like will always remember if I'm in that basement there in the dark, look over and there's the aquarium and the stairs are right behind me going up. Like it's there. I can picture myself there. So that's another form. I dealt with a lot of bullying for,
Oh, yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, this thing. It's called skin color. Can't really help that one.
Yeah.
But
well, you were recalling a comment that was made about you wearing certain types of clothes that I also got, my brother also got growing up.
I'm not going to mention your name, but you're out there, and it's probably a joke. But I got a American Eagle white shirt, and it had the green lettering across, and then like the green eagle logo on the front. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of like fuzzy. It looked nice. It felt nice. It kind of made me look like I had some muscles. Yeah. And we were sitting in the lunch line. I believe I was in 8th grade. And she was in front of me, and she looked back, and she goes, "Oh, that's American Eagle?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, I didn't know your people could afford that." Ooh. And I'm just sitting here like, I'm never wearing this shirt again. I did, but at home. I didn't wear it to school.
So were you angry at her, or were you embarrassed?
I was very angry. I was angry and embarrassed.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed because my people, being of my descent.
And were there other kids in earshot that heard this?
I don't know. I was more focused in the moment. Mm-hmm. More sort of like introverted myself, like, oh God, I don't want to wear this shirt anymore. What if somebody else says this to me? Because it was weird. Most of the day it went by, nobody had said anything. I had a couple people like, oh, that's a nice shirt. Good shirt. Mm-hmm. And here she is ruining my freaking day. And
like you get on the bus and you got this brand new shirt and it's all like fresh. And you're
fresh.
Like, today's the day I'm going to ask that girl out.
Yeah. Somebody want to know where the sun is? It's right over there. Pointing out like simple stuff. So that having a bit of those racial prejudices against me. I had these bullies that would spit dip in my face at the back of the bus, or they'd hold me against the bus or call me border hopper or wetback or all these things. I had somebody call me the sand N-word one time, and I didn't know what that was. And I remember I had this lady, her name was Miss Bradley. She was our ISS teacher, and she also did the after school program. I didn't know what it was. So I remember asking her, Miss Bradley, and she was black. I was like, Miss Bradley, what does this mean? Oh, man, you would have thought the world was going to end. She was mad. And Miss Bradley, I love Miss Bradley because when she had anger, she had anger. And she went and addressed it with the boys, and she told me not to ever pay attention to those words again. Later, growing up, learning more about like the Civil War and slavery and stuff like that, learning that, being like, why did they call me that? Well, then we had the Iraqi War. And you heard some people sort of say some things about those people over there. And I put two and two together. Oh, it's because of this. That's the reason I'm being called that. It's not about who I am as a person.
Yeah.
They're just ignorant. But at the time, it still hurt. Being called those things hurt. It made me angry. Like, why can't I be white? If I'm being completely honest.
Oh, dude, I felt the same way, especially when, like, middle school, high school, for me at least, and the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC were really big. It was all blonde hair, blue eyes. And here I was with brown eyes, brown hair, living in a trailer, squinty eyes.
Yeah, they tell you
dark
crap
skin.
eyes. Oh, what's up, crap eyes?
And it's like all that stuff was associated with one another. It's like if you were a good person, you'd live in a nice house, your skin tone would be light, you'd have light hair, you'd have money, you'd have Abercrombie and Fitch clothing or, skater clothing or whatever, like the expensive stuff. You'd have freaking Vans and Airwalks. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm a freaking adult now and still my skin starts to burn when I think about it.
And that's how it was because I'd just be like, why can't I be white?
Yeah.
Why? I had a girl tell me one time that she thought I was ugly, and it was not because of my skin tone or anything like that, but that was when I was younger. I was in 3rd grade. Well, then as I grew up older, my self-confidence with women had always stayed very, very low. I knew I liked girls. I loved girls, girls at a young age. I wanted to get with a girl. But I never really had that confidence or that self-esteem. And then I remember there was this girl in 7th or 8th grade. I'd asked her, like, hey, let's go on a date. And her comment to me was, my dad wouldn't like it if I dated a brown boy. And that just sort of angered me, not towards her, but just the circumstance of like, there it is again, another barrier, something I can't help. Here I am, not good enough. That's what it makes you feel like. You're not good enough. Why? Because I'm brown. I'm just as funny as anybody. I'm funnier than most of your people. No offense. Generalizing. That's a joke. But, I'm hilarious in my own degree. So give me a chance, We'd have a good time holding hands, me mildly sweating while watching Twilight in the movie theater. or The Notebook. I know a bunch of people back then loved The Notebook. But yeah, that was another thing, was that racism I had to deal with, that bullying. I was also small and very weak. As opposed to Sean Luke, who was still skinny and taller, but boy, was he strong.
Yeah, so this picture that you've painted is of this kid who is from an ethnic background that isn't really esteemed, from a socioeconomic situation that you couldn't control, that wasn't the healthiest, for nobody's fault specifically, just everybody dealing with life. And then you had Sean Luke that had recently passed away, so there was a void there. And it's like all these mounting frustrations and things that were unfair. All this was kind of like coalescing together on a 16-year-old, 17-year-old.
Oh no, earlier than that.
And even earlier. So you graduate high school, and then you become a young adult, and all the things thereafter. What was that like? Because when you graduate and when you have your license and you're an adult,
young adult,
you have the opportunity for more control of your life. Did that help at all?
No, I think it honestly made it a little bit worse because I was still dealing with Sean Luke even a couple years after, dealing with my depression. So the depression started sort of now spiraling a bit more. I'm dealing with the racism. I'm dealing with the trauma from when I was younger. I'm dealing with the absence of my father, who I yet still have not met, and dealing with all these things that are brewing inside of me, feeling like I'm not good enough. Like I said, the relationship with my mother, we said things back and forth to each other. And also feeling the absence of family. My family was small. It was my grandma, my brother, my nephew, my niece, my mom, and then my stepdad. 7 people. My uncle was in New York, and I had cousins spread out through everywhere, and I didn't know my father's side of the family that well. My uncle, he would call me on my dad's side of the family and wish me happy birthday on the correct days, and he would tell me that, I'm proud of you and things like this. Did more than my actual father did. And it did provide a love and support to me in a way where I'm like, man, I'm glad he called me. But then a couple minutes later, why didn't my dad do that? And then you're just thinking and thinking and thinking. So a lot of that spiraled, and it sort of grew a bit more. I didn't feel like I was worth anything. People had said some mean things too sometimes. Girls, I was dating some girls, and they were sweet. They treated me good for the time. I just didn't feel worth like anything, and sometimes I would act out in a way to show me I'm worth something.
Mm-hmm.
I guess majority of my life I'd always wanted to show me I'm worth something. You
Yeah.
know, show me I'm worth coming home to. Show
Mm-hmm.
me I'm worth seeing past my skin color. Show me I'm worth not bullying. Show me I'm worth dating. Show me, show me something. Show me I don't have to be attractive like, Ryan Reynolds or anything, but show me that I'm at
You
least.
think Ryan Reynolds is
I
attractive?
think he's an attractive man. Ryan Reynolds.
I'd give him a 6.
A 6?
I'd give him a 6.
A 6? I'd say high 8.
Daniel Craig. Now that.
Daniel Craig doesn't do it for me though.
Yeah.
No. I'd say if I had a man crush, younger versions definitely. Young Clint Eastwood. That's a man's man right there. He looks good. Kevin Costner. Idris Elba.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a weird one. I was so off topic.
Off topic, but
Freaking Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, that name, first of all, is it's just like.
You talking about that Doctor Strange guy?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
yeah.
He's all right. He doesn't do it for me. It doesn't do it for me. He just doesn't do it.
Okay.
Anyways.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, dude, like what you're saying resonates with me a lot. And I remember my dating life. I didn't date a lot through my 20s because I was striving to be something more than what I was in so many regards. I was in multi-level marketing. I was chasing money. I was trying to. I made sure my clothes were pressed. I made sure. I even had like this little thing I kept my clothes in at my home because I lived with my parents and they smoked a lot.
Right.
And I would keep my clothes in it. I would spray them with cologne, I would iron them, and then I would put them in this little container and I would seal them. And so people that saw me out in public thought that my home life was much different than my public life because I was stepping out and trying to be something else. And I remember like I would always come home and, you could hear my leather shoes click, click, click as I'll walk over the laminate flooring in our home. And I would just look at my parents and I'd be like, ugh. And I would just feel a separation. Like, I'm up here and they're down here.
Right.
And I hated that so much because it felt so phony and so like unloving, honestly.
Yeah. Like, who am I to be this?
It just felt so inauthentic, but at the same time, there were things that I was trying to separate myself from. And in the dating world, I didn't feel like I was good enough to date until I had arrived at whatever the destination was, being financially stable, being, having a healthier lifestyle, living on my own. And back then it didn't even feel like I could live on my own because of financial limitations or the worldview on finances that I had, which was very limited.
Right.
I always felt like, paying cash for a car, that's only something that wealthy people do.
Yeah. Plastic. Oh, not me.
Yeah. And if I buy a car, it's got to be a $40,000 car. I can't settle like
Hummer or nothing.
That's a big thing that my family did as far as coping, because it's not that we were super poor. It's just we were super mismanaged.
Right.
Our light bill would get cut off, but it's because we had $50
had the money just
Thai
in the wrong
food
place.
every single night, And so it's like I always lived beyond my means, and I thought that was going to fill that void. I don't know if you ever felt that way, but
sometimes I've had that. Like, if I spend this, I might not feel that bad.
Yeah.
And that can sometimes lead you into debt.
Mm-hmm.
So tying back in, speaking on that, thank you for speaking that, was sort of, and I don't, it sounds kind of rude. No, but I'm glad you're reflecting too, and telling me stuff. So it's not just a one-way street, because I don't want it to feel that way. But those were things that I was dealing with, and the depression was heavy. There were a lot of nights, this was before the Discord, and I didn't PC game. So online. And so Sean Luke was our main anchor of our friend group.
Oh, he was the connector point.
He was the connector.
Okay.
So once he was gone, those other guys, they skedaddled, and it was mostly because they had sent me their remorse messages like, hey, I'm really sorry to hear about this. We care about you. And then, last seen online 9 months ago, that stuff happened. So who am I going to talk to?
Yeah.
And because of what Sean Luke did, it pushed me away from friendships. I don't want friends. You see what happens after that. You get too close and they're not there one day.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it felt like. It wasn't like that with everybody. There were some people that I did still keep close to me, sort of like a toddler, I'm going to grab you, a toddler sort of hanging on to your shirt. Like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow you for a bit because I'm not strong enough to walk on my own. And so, but the depression ate me up where I was just like, well, maybe I don't need to be here anymore. I'm not good enough. I'd say things. My mom would say things. I'd try to reflect with those around me that I felt like loved me, and some of them couldn't relate. I had friends who were more economically well off and go to their house and I'd see their great family dynamic, which could also be a facade. And then seeing like, let's go out on a 4-wheeler and go through like my 20 acres of land and this and that, having the greatest time of my life. And here I am returning back to my hellhole.
Yeah.
Where
hit me in the feels.
Yeah. Where I'm just telling my mom how I feel. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel like, I'm worth anything. And the patience isn't there. And sometimes she's giving me sound advice, but it's not what I want to hear. And I think that's sometimes when you're going through those things, some advice I guess I would give would be tune in a little bit to the stuff you don't want to hear. There might be something there. Because I felt like sometimes I might have shunned off a lot of the advice that maybe would have helped me a little bit sooner. Yeah. Instead of feeling like I'm not worth it. I want to be loved. That has always been when I was heavy in my depression. I just want to be loved. People can tell me all day long, I love you, I love you, I love you. They can show it. But because I didn't love myself, because I felt like I wasn't worth anything, I completely closed myself off from everything else and allowed myself to sit in this dark area without anybody. I can see the light. I can see people reaching out, but one, I didn't have the energy to get up and go, okay, let's make today a different day. And then two, it was just a lot easier to sit there on the ground and cry and sit there and, be alone in my emotion.
What do you think the difference is between loving yourself and just feeling sorry for yourself?
I think feeling sorry for yourself is you have the ability to make change and you could do those things. You have people who are clearly trying to make, let's go out, man. I'll pay for you to go get dinner or whatever, and we'll go watch a movie and we'll make a day out of it, and talk to me. Tell me these things. And then just sitting and, being depressed. You said depressed, sort of just not having the ability to do that. And so I guess feeling sorry for yourself, if I was to phrase it a certain way, would be you have these active, engaging people that want to make a difference. Let's do it. Let's change. But you aren't going to do it when you can. And now that is a touchy area, though, because like I just said, sometimes you don't have the energy to want to do it. Like, yeah, I see you there, man, and I'd love to get help, but I just don't feel like it today. I just don't love myself today. And then loving yourself, though, you sort of have nothing to really go on. If that makes any sense. I feel like
it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because just thinking about value, right? Like when you get a brand new car, man, you detail it. You make sure its tires are changed. You do that. Hey, no food in my new car, please. Yeah. You get regular oil changes. But if you buy a car that's got 160,000 miles on it, needs an alignment, paints
20-piece nugget meal all day.
You just don't value.
Touch me the fresh. Don't worry about the salt. I'll get it later.
And the same thing happens with relationships too. Like when we start taking things for granted, not seeing how valuable they actually are. Because we were joking earlier about how Thanksgiving just happened.
Yeah,
and it's like,
let me think about what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I asked.
My name's Tony.
Christian. I was like, my gosh, what's his name? I asked Christian, like, what are you thankful for? And he's like, and I mean, I'm like that too, but when we fail to look at things and see the value in them, or why we are thankful, it's really easy just to cast them to the side. That's why, like, if you go in therapy circles or counseling or whatever, they always try and redirect your thought patterns into something that's healthy.
Right.
But when you were going through all the depression, and I want to kind of get closer to the catalyst for the suicidal thoughts,
right?
And
Definitely.
Navigating that. As you were getting through that stuff, what was your position on thankfulness? Was that even on your radar?
Not until later.
Yeah.
Not in the beginning.
Like after the fact?
After the sort of the attempts and things of that nature. And there wasn't, when I say attempts, there wasn't like multiple. There were two main ones that I was going to act on. But I guess before, real quick, a little bit more on the self-pity and then the self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Self-pity, I feel like even if you pity yourself, if you have the ability to want to do it and the energy, and you still choose, like, maybe I might be able to get a couple more people to, like, get me something. Things of that nature. Sort of using it for personal, the manipulative, using it for personal gain, as opposed to that self-love, like, they say I'm funny, but I don't feel funny. They say I'm this, I'm not that. You have to feel it. It's like drawing a stencil of a character, and you can color inside it all you want, but unless it's your vision, unless you see it and you know, my masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else can sort of show you a picture. Is it this guy? No. Is it this guy? No. That's not me. That's not me. That's not me. That's who you say I am. That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see your own little like stenciled character and the colors are all out of line and things like that. Well, that's me. And then you kind of don't feel like, is that worth love? So moving towards the catalyst and whatever, the thankfulness, no, I wouldn't say until after the fact. So the depression and everything was whelming inside me. The suicidal attempts, sort of the wanting to follow in those footsteps of Sean Luke a bit, not follow particularly to a T, but I started dating and things of that nature. I started seeking love and self, I guess, verification, validation in other people instead of myself. So if I thought you were a cool person and I thought you were amazing, whatever, if you loved me, I'm lovable. I'm a great person. This guy says I'm great. I'm great. If we're dating and I think you're beautiful and charming and all this other stuff, and you say, yay, that's my boyfriend. He's great. Well, now I'm attractive because she says I'm attractive.
Oh, the dependency nature.
The dependency. It definitely kicked up. It kicked in because I might have been shown a lot of love when I was a child, but I didn't absorb it. And I don't know if that's a me thing or if maybe it was just the environment and things just didn't line up. Like puzzles that look like they should go together, but they just won't fit. So you're going to like slam it in there.
Mm-hmm.
So my dependency definitely kicked up in my partners and my friends and things of that nature. And that's where we talked a little bit about that RSD that comes with ADHD. Oh, I can't hang out today, man. Well, I'm not good enough. I guess I'm not his friend anymore. You know,
You must be mad at me. Like, you don't want to hang out with me. Oh,
what
did I do?
Exactly.
Why are you mad at me?
Why are you mad at me? What's going on? Why am I not good enough? Or a girlfriend like, oh, I don't want to see you today. I'm dealing with instead of being like, hey, are you okay? Fine. Well, how can I be there? You don't want to see me? Why don't you want to see me? And being defensive on the guard, like I am worth seeing, even though I don't feel that way. I want you to know that because I don't know that. And again, it makes no sense, but that's just how it feels. Because now I feel attacked, even though that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I'm not listening to listen. I'm listening to react right off gate. I'm trying to protect myself because I've already been hurt so much, mostly by myself and some other people around me who should have been in positions to not do what they did. That sort of happened. And then it was really upsetting. My mom had a .38 in the house, a pistol. She had it hidden away. I never knew what it was until one day I found it. And that sort of made it even more realistic. I had mentioned, like, I don't want to live anymore. Being really sad, and especially after these girls toying with my emotions and things like that. Being upset. I had that. I don't want to live, but I don't know how I would do it. I don't want to do it that way. I know how if I died, it wouldn't be a bad thing. And then I found the gun. And knowing where it was everywhere I was in the house, it's like I had a pinpoint location.
Isn't it weird when you discover things like that are options? It's strange how confident you feel when you feel like you can have control over something. It's like, oh, well, all this other stuff is falling and just crumbling around me, but there's a gun here and I can control if that happens or not.
Any point in time I want to do it, I'll go do it. Of course, I need the gall to go do it. I need the sort of the energy, the motivation. But I know if things ultimately got really bad, I know where you're at. I'll keep you in my mind. And I kept it in my mind. I'd be at school and think about it. Well, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something happened. Somebody make me upset. Or I'd upset myself in my deep thought. I know where it's at. I'm sitting there. And I'd separated myself from a lot of people because of it. I used to be, I wouldn't say popular, but well known, and people like talking to me. And I love talking to people. I love making people laugh. I love just being that guy. Again, most of it was attention seeking to sort of fulfill my love for myself that I didn't have. So that was a way, but since I shut myself off from it, I channeled even more and more further down into the hole of not wanting to be here. And knowing where the gun is, I'll do it whenever I want. And so I told my mom this morning, I called her before I came, I told her I wasn't going to put her on blast or discuss anything crazy what would happen between us. But it got more unhealthy. It got more out of control. It got more aggressive from both sides. Now I'm being defiant and I'm being aggressive because I'm used to how you are and I'm not going to take it no more. And here you are being the exact same way. And now we're just saying some very hateful, hurtful stuff to each other. For example, you know, I'm going to do this. Well, fine. If you do this, just make sure I'm not here. Let your imagination take you where you will. I'm not going to put anybody on blast, but that is a situation I had to deal with. That is my truth. Mm-hmm. Love my mom to death. Called her this morning, told her I love her when I got off the phone. And I am so glad we are past that, because when that moment happened, that gun definitely became even more of an option.
Yeah, and I just want to take just insert this real quick. Like, as you guys are listening to this, you're probably identifying similar situations in your own life. Two things. My buddy Brandon once told me this, and it's just stuck with me ever since. He said, hurt people. And that's totally true.
Right.
You don't hurt people if you're not hurting, unless you're sadistic. But really, if you're sadistic,
Right.
you're hurting your own ways. But also, you can't really expect people that are in unhealthy places to respond in healthy ways. Right. I think that's a really important perspective, because when you talk about stuff like this, you could look at it through the lens of, wow, you shouldn't say that about them. Well, right. I mean, the reality of it is we're all in unhealthy places just at different points in our life, and we just respond in unhealthy ways. And that's the thick of it. It's nobody's fault. We have to take responsibility for that, but that doesn't mean that they're a bad person because they're responding in an unhealthy way. Right. So your mom's not a bad person. It's just in those specific situations, there were times and ways that she responded in an unhealthy way because she was in an unhealthy place.
Right. And my mom had went through a lot that I didn't take into consideration a lot, that I wouldn't learn until later in life. My mom had been through a crap load of stuff. So for her to even be here, good for you. But in that moment, I'm sort of ignorant to that fact. I don't know everything, so I'm just sort of upset about it. So one day I, had the gun. I was in the dining room and nobody was there, and we had gotten to a major spit spat.
And how old were you?
I think I was 16, about to turn 17.
Okay, so this is about a year or two after Sean Luke.
Right.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, I dealt with channeling the depression even more. And when it's channeling, not purposefully, but it's there. I'm feeding it, whether I know it or not. And I had mentioned to some people, like, I didn't want to be here before, and they'd give me sort of a little mini pep talk. Well, it's all right. You're alive, And I used to listen to that and be like, what does that even mean? I'm alive. I don't want to be alive. You're not listening to what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be here. I didn't ask for this. That's how I felt for a majority of everything I went through. Why am I dealing with this? I didn't ask for this. I didn't go into a line and go, I want to be born, and I'll take this little brown boy in this little racist area. Not everybody was racist. Not everybody was racist. But in this rural area where racism is prominent. And did we say poor? Because we want them to be poor. And then we also want sort of this unhealthy family dynamic and all these other circumstances. So it just angered me. My depression was more of anger also. There was sadness. There was self-pity and all these things. There was remorse and guilt. There was definitely guilt.
What were you angry about?
And I wasn't good enough. That I didn't have the ability to be good enough. I was scared for my sake. Might as well end it now before I fail and prove everybody right. Might as well go ahead and just period right there. Mm-hmm. And that like I said, I had a lot of anger. And one night, me and my mom had a big spitzbat, and some other things had happened, and I knew where the gun was, and I was like, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to be it. They'd been gone for a while, and, I'm pacing around the house like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Do I leave a note? Do I not leave a note? Do I tell anybody? Do I not tell anybody? What do I do? How do I do this? Is it loaded? Where's the bullets? And so finally, go in, check it. I play Call of Duty enough. I know how to work a firearm, even though I never worked a firearm.
Just press Y.
Yeah, just press Y. Plug the controller right into the magazine. I see it. It's loaded. I cock it. It's there. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And like not right when I was about to, like not as I was grabbing it, but finally had the it's weird. When I felt like I was ready to do it, it wasn't like a jump to go do it. It was more of a, I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. Sort of like a relief. It's about to be all over. I will be good enough somewhere else. And then headlights. Somebody's home. Then I chickened out. Put the gun up. Go back to my room.
Do you think if you had more time that you would have done it?
I probably would have. Which is scary to think. I probably would have. And I know it's extremely selfish because I had my nephews, my nieces, my older brother, who I love so much. Ray, Matt. I just saw what it did to me. Why would I do that to other people? Especially if I was a bit more well-known than Jean-Luc and I had more friends. Jean-Luc didn't have that many friends because he was reserved. He picked who he wanted to be his friend. I was the opposite. Give me all the friends. I need to be loved. Give me everybody. Stone? Friend. Like, that's how it felt. So here I am. I'm about to do twice the damage. Not saying that I'm more important than Jean-Luc, but I have more of a network. I have a farther reach. I'm about to do more damage. And what am I doing to Jean-Luc's family now? That just had to deal with that. Now they got to hear, the boy that they helped raise.
So this is what you were thinking in the midst?
In a little bit in the midst. But I'd already had the resolve. Like after. This is after. In the midst of that night. After. It was just like, oh my God. But in that moment, I did have the resolve. Like I said, it was like a nice, refreshing, like, I can breathe. I'm going to die now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to choose when I die. It won't be cancer. It won't be getting mugged randomly. I'm doing this for me. Even though I thought I'd done everything in the world, I know I haven't. I didn't, unless you screenwrite or screenplay write, whatever, film the world's greatest catastrophe. I didn't do everything. I didn't climb Mount Everest. I didn't duel and make ramen or do, all the things that I wanted to do. So
you said duel?
Duel, yeah. Like duel, yeah, duel.
All right, I'll put that on the bucket list. Let's go.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel.
It's time to commit suicide.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not making light of it.
No, but I mean, there is some light now because I'm on the other side of it.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it definitely was it was a reality. It was a possibility.
So I'm kind of curious. So the driving force of thinking, well, what about the people I'm going to affect? Like Jean-Luc's family, your family.
And that was after it.
Yeah, after the fact. What do you think is the difference in that mode of thought between conviction and condemnation? Because obviously, condemnation is not a good thing,
right?
But conviction is a heart position of I want to do the right, loving thing. Like, how did you find that balance, or did you find the balance?
I didn't find it right there.
Yeah,
I didn't find it right there. So after I didn't do it, somebody came home. I played it off. I'm home. A little bit like a year after that, close to a year after that, was very much still, because I knew I had the resolve once, it made it easier to think about even more now. Mm-hmm. I can do it. I know how to do it now. I know where it's at. And my mom never moved it. I never told my mom I found it. So I was just like, I can do it. And more stuff happened. I had this girl that I was dating emotionally toy with me, sort of like I said, happened with Jean-Luc. And now I knew what he was feeling, because any progress that I was making to sort of climb out of depression, this girl just took everything and pushed it back in that box. I wasn't good enough. She told me that.
Now, was she doing it intentionally?
I think so. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, she was that girl, unfortunately, during that time. Now, later, we knew each other, and she was different. But for my truth, during that time, it was very much manipulative. She liked playing with me. She saw a younger, attractive guy that she could sort of have her reins over, that would give her all the attention in the world that she wanted, that would give her all the love, and you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, let's go hang out, let's go watch a movie, I'll pay for everything, even though I'm working like this job that ain't paying me nothing. Mm-hmm. What do you want? Let me give it to you. Let me just be the greatest guy ever. Every romance movie you've watched, that's me now, because I wanted that love back. I felt like I had somebody that could potentially give it to me, and that dependency, I threw everything at her. And unfortunately, her motive wasn't to love. It was to get her own satisfaction and gratification and validation. And then when she was done, crunch and throw. And that's what happened to me. I was driving back from West Virginia visiting Ray and Matt, and she had told me that she was sleeping with her ex-boyfriend and all that. And I was like, well, what about us? She was like, oh, you can drive off the side of the mountain if you want. And
is that verbatim?
Verbatim.
Yikes.
I'm in this Ford Ranger, not on the side of a mountain, but I know it's coming back towards like where Winston is and everything. Past, I think it's Palma, I can't remember. But I was like, well, maybe. But I was like, no, I need to get home. Mm-hmm. I need to get home. So I got home, and it just sat with me more. I felt lovesick. I felt so destroyed, broken, like I was grieving Jean-Luc again. But it wasn't Jean-Luc I was grieving. It was just grieving the loss of someone that I could have been intimate with. Someone that we're young and dumb. We feel like we got forever with. And so unfortunately, I had to deal with that, and I had to sit with that all alone. I remember walking in the rain for like 2 hours one time because I was so just sad. It was raining outside, and I was like, I feel like that. So I just walked out there. And then a little bit after that, have you ever heard of Omegle? Everybody has.
Yeah. The talking platform.
Yeah. Well, some people use it for other things, but I used it this one particular night was the night I was like, I had that resolve again. Like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I don't care if somebody's home or whatever. I'm going to walk past everybody, go into the kitchen. I'm going to do it because the girl had emotionally messed with me and I couldn't cope with it. I didn't have the coping skills. I didn't have the strength. People were telling me there's fish in the sea, plenty of fish in the sea. And I'm just like,
I hate that.
That's
especially
my fish.
Especially when you're grieving, man.
Yeah.
It's like, don't just explain it away.
And me being selfish, I'm like, that's my fish. She ain't my fish. Nobody's my property.
Yeah.
Nobody's your property. And unfortunately, though, I had that mindset. Like, she's with that guy. That guy's not going to treat her how I'm going to treat her. He's not going to love her the way I love her. He's not going to pay attention to every little imperfection and love it. You know, That's me. At least I thought it was. And so I was dealing with it even more. And I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. It was like I was carrying so much. And then I was still dealing with like, where's my dad? But it's kind of like on the back end of thing. And then, you know, me and my brother, my older brother, were kind of butting heads because I was a defiant little jackass. So, and I apologize for that side of me that we had to butt heads for. And feeling like I just wasn't good enough again. Now I have proof I'm not good enough. I had thought it. Now someone's telling me I'm not. Now someone's actions tell me I'm not. Someone who I'd given so much of myself of, who I'd told things to. Now Sean Luke hasn't been able to hear. So for the past couple of years, now I have somebody else I can tell these things to. So I was like, I'm going to do it. So I got on Omegle and I found a random person. And part of me thinks now that it was definitely me sort of trying to find a way to stop because I knew it was going to happen. I knew I had the resolve. I'm going to do it. And I come across this girl. Her name's Haley, but I didn't know her name at the front. And I was just like, I'm going to kill myself. Or she was like, hey, how are you? I'm like, fine. I think I'm going to kill myself today. Because on Omegle, you didn't have to show your camera. And we were in the text chat thing. So it says stranger, but different colors. Here's a random person. I don't have to throw this on anybody. And after it's done, when I've said my piece, I hit escape. It'll skip the person. Yeah, they might be like, did that happen? Leave them with that forever what if, but that's just one person. I don't have to throw this on who my really good friend is at the time. I don't have to throw this on my mom or my older brother. Just some random person. Take this from me. I'm so sorry, but take it from me. I'm going to go do this. And she had mentioned, and I don't remember verbatim our talk, which is really odd to me because it was so prominent in me. That was my last attempt. A little bit before this, too, I forgot to mention that I was sexually assaulted. So that also...
At what age?
I was 16, turned 17. There was someone that I had trusted that was come to my store and I worked at Rose's, and he would come in and he was like, I'm a preacher, I'm this and that. I love God and this and that.
Why is it always a preacher?
I don't know, man. Y'all got to stop. So he was like, do you want to come worship? I'm like, yeah, well, you got video games? That's me. You could always get me with some video games. So, yeah, I got some video games to go in. And I'm like, well, hey, I got a girlfriend that, I'm dating. Maybe you can teach me some stuff about how to, please a woman and things like that. That's
a really weird angle, but it makes sense.
It was an adult I trusted that wasn't my older brother. It wasn't Sergio, my stepdad, because that's weird. Don't talk about being with my mom. There was nobody else. And he had mentioned if there's anything you need help with or want to talk to, and he emphasized anything, talk to me. Well, I trusted him. He'd been coming in for 6-7 months. And somebody else that I knew I was working with vouched for him. So I'm like, yeah, I trust you. So I get there. No video games there. It's just a apartment. He's like, oh, I gotta, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty and stuff. Mm-hmm. But one thing led to another, and I was assaulted. And I remember leaving there like, great. Now I'm not worth anything except for being used, and I'm a dummy, and I let this happen to me. So I'm not good enough. And so I'd been dating a girl after the one who had messed with me. No. They were like really close to each other. One was before the other. But this was a reason why we broke up, and I never told her that. So I've been doing this for a while. Like, am I gay? I'm not gay. I know I wasn't gay. But because of what happened, and I had no control over it. And this guy was so much bigger than me and stronger than me. I was subjected to that, and I had to force myself to get off just so he could get off and run out of that place as fast as I can. So because of that, it had sat with me for a little bit more. And then this happens with this girl. And then, like, you know, I keep saying it, but my dad, my mom, being brown, racism, bullying, unkind words, not loving myself, just all funnels into this storm. And so I was like, okay, so that night I'm on Omegle and I'm telling this girl, and I didn't tell her about that, but I'm going to end myself. And she talked to me. She just talked to me like I wasn't. And I was like, don't do it. You know, there's things you can live for and things of that nature. And I don't, like I said, I don't ultimately remember what was said, but I remember not doing it. And I added her on Facebook, and we're still friends to this day. She actually reached out to me after the video. Or I reached out to her about the video, and I asked, can I talk about you tomorrow? This was last night. She's like, yeah.
That's
and I
awesome.
thanked her for what she did. Because even though she wasn't the main reason I didn't want to commit suicide anymore, she started me on my journey of figuring out, okay, I want to live then. If people are going to talk me out of this, I want to live, but how am I going to live? How am I going to love myself? Which has still been a journey to this day. It's a while. But I learned that, fine, killing myself bad. Ultimately, simple, layman, caveman terms. Suicide, bad, hurt people, live life. A lot of life to live. So how am I going to do that, though? How do I start to love myself? And how do I stop letting these people freaking hurt me back? Because I keep letting people in way too easy. So then I did the thing that some people do, and they instantly, stay away. You're not my friend. You're not my friend. You're not my friend. I'm going to be mad at you for whatever reason now. You're not my friend. You're not my friend. Pushing everybody away. Like a reset. An emotional and mental health reset. If you're my friend, you will be persistent and break through and show me you're going to be here. That's what I thought. And some people did do that. I'm thankful for them. And some, unfortunately, and I don't blame them because that could be exhausting. Like, well, I mean, I'm your friend.
On social media, sometimes you see these posts where it's like, if you're really my friend, you'll respond to this in 24 hours. And it's like, I'm not the center of people's universe, but at the same time, it is still nice to know that people care.
Right. And just a simple hello or a little GIF. So that was my last attempt. And most people would be like, that's not even an attempt, man. I had the resolve. I was going to do it. I knew I had the ability to do it. To me, it's an attempt because I was going to say my one last, sorry, I'm doing this, get it off my chest, and then go walk and do it. And fortunately enough for me, somebody cared on the other side. Instead of, she could have pressed skip. It could have said stranger disconnected, and I'd be like, well, I'm about to too, so. Yeah, it's effed up to say, but
it's kind of funny, but in a really messed up way.
So, like I said, comic at heart. So after that, I had to go on this journey of uphill. No more depending on others. No more depending on, the sorrow anymore to get me through the day. Sometimes that pain did come in handy to keep people away from me and keep myself safe. I don't want to be assaulted anymore. I don't want to be weak anymore. I don't want you calling me that anymore. I don't want you talking to me in that tone anymore. I don't want you telling me I'm not worth it. So, and unfortunately, there was still me dating some women, and I still had some of that dependency. Like, hey, let's hang out. Let's do that. Some would say clingy, but me, I didn't know how to love myself yet. What does that look like? And I met some good role models that did show me what love looked like. Self-love.
I mean,
something
about GameStop.
Man, this guy just does great in GameStop. This makes me want to change my entire life. No, I'm playing. But in a way, yeah, seeing you interact and stuff like that, I'm like, hey, he's got it good. He's always happy.
It was also a facade because I was in my 20s.
And see, that's that thing. I didn't have the energy to put that facade up anymore because that's what I was doing for so long with that depression. Facade. I'm happy. I helped one girl. She told me I helped her. That's the only reason I'm saying it. She voiced to me before my depression got super, super crazy, but after Sean Luke, that she was going to kill herself. And I wind up keeping her on the phone, figured out where she lived, and was like, hey, I'm going to call you back real quick. My mom's calling me. She's like, all right. And thank God she waited. And I called 911, and I was like, y'all got to get here now. She's about to do it. And they busted in there, and they detained her for 3 days or like a week. She came back to school shortly after, and she was so mad at me. But then a little bit after, It's like before she had her son, she was like, "Thank you. You saved my life." And I didn't know what to do with that. I was like, I don't stop. That's not, because I'm still sitting here kind of thinking about it myself.
Yeah.
And so I guess some of the self-reflection after the time with, Haley was her name from Omegle, who sort of helped me off that ledge. Thank you. That I had to reflect, like, how can I sit here and tell people not to do it and try to save these people and talk them off the ledge? And I'm trying to talk myself onto the ledge. I'm trying to actually do it. So I was tired of it. I knew I wasn't going to do it after that because I was just tired. And I knew sort of another sort of thing was that's when that sort of thinking about Sean Luke's family and my friends and all that became a lot more prominent. That thankfulness. I have these people, some people like Ray, Matt, Eddie at the time, who my older brother, when I met my other older brother and that my father's side of the family, eventually when I met them, and my mom and my stepdad, who I call my real dad, that is my real dad, showed me a love, and I finally started to pay attention to it. It might have not been the love that I wanted to be shown, the way I wanted to be shown, but it was a form of love. And once I started, like I said, tuning in a bit more and listening to different things, I finally was like, I can do this. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a hell of a journey, but I can do this. It was a hell of a journey.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Through it all, because Christian, you're a Christian, where was God? What was your relationship with him? What was y'all's conversations before, during, and after?
God was there. I think part of me was maybe trying to tune him out because I felt shame. Especially after hearing a bunch of people going, Sean Luke killed himself, he's going to hell. So I was just like, I don't want to think about that. All I want to think about is just not existing anymore. And so having that shame of like God knowing that I'm hurting because of what had happened. Here I am about to do it to other people. What does that look like? And I also remember praying to God a lot, like, give me a reason to be happy. Please give me a reason to be happy. Stop letting people hurt me. Stop. And so I separated myself from church even more and talks about when people would talk about God. I never rejected or any way denounced or anything of that nature. I still said, I believe in Jesus Christ, died on the cross for my sins, things of that nature. But I would just sort of like, all right, well, I'm about to go. See ya.
I think it's kind of poignant that through all this stuff, like you attempted suicide one time, or like you were close. And then I don't know where that was in the timeline, but somewhere in the mix of all people, there was a pastor representing God.
That was on the back end. So there was my first attempt that was around like 16. Mm-hmm. And then on the back half of 17, where the second attempt would happen, right here, closer to the beginning of 17 is when that assault happened.
Yeah. And it's just so interesting how, like, when it comes to life and death matters and people start thinking about, like, especially love, like, am I worthy of love? Am I capable of love? Mm-hmm. And Jesus is the embodiment of it, that this person comes in your life and they're a representation of what that should be, like a representative, not a representation of Jesus. And they did that, you know?
And I would say I had enough knowledge to know that when that happened, that not to blame God. Mm-hmm. I never blamed God for any of it. At least I don't think I did. And if I did, I apologize. But me now, I know I wouldn't. And when that happened, that assault, I just sort of was like, that guy definitely doesn't, practice what he preaches. Yeah. So I knew I knew to focus more on the individual than what he had represented. But unfortunately, there are people that can't do that. And so a pastor may do something or somebody from a church may do something. And now they've condemned not only that person, but that entirety. Well, you represent Christ and you did that. Well, then Christ ain't for me.
Yeah.
And that really sucks. Because, like I said, I'm a non-denominational. I worship on my own. I do have a church that I go to whenever I feel as if I need a place to worship. But I'm much more comfortable worshiping on my own and in my own train of thoughts and, sort of talking to God like, all right, God, we're going to do this today. God, I'm dealing with this today. Give me the power to handle this. God, somebody brought this up to me, so I really hope that you can just help them a bit. Whatever attention you're going to give me today, don't give it to me. Give it to them. I'll do that.
So navigating all this stuff, just to recap everything, you came from a background that was really difficult. You know, there was racism, there was socioeconomic issues, just seeing yourself as valuable in general. And then you went through it. And then on the other side of it, you're starting to see things, or like back then, because you're 28 now.
Right.
27, 28. So it's almost a decade afterwards. And there were things that you started to see and things you started to recognize. You said, I tuned out God because I felt shame. You said, how am I going to live and how am I going to love myself? And it seems like in the past 10 years, that journey for you has been pretty fruitful. Do you think, because earlier before we were talking to you guys, Christian and I were talking about purpose, talking about making clear purpose.
Clear purpose, that's the card.
A priority. Do you think not going through all this stuff, do you think that the catalyst and the aftermath and actually having to go through the conflict of resolving all this stuff, do you think that has attributed to you having a clear vision of what your purpose is?
Maybe. I know that's unfair to sort of take an in the middle answer.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard to say yes or no. Yeah, I'd feel like it'd be a definite.
Yeah.
I do definitely feel like all that happened, and because I was fortunate enough to come out on the other side of that thanks to the support that I had, and then people not giving up on me, because it wasn't just Haley on Omegle that I had mentioned it to. There were a couple others that I mentioned. Last week I'd mentioned a tide coming in, and some people I'd mentioned to, like, I don't want to live anymore. I never voiced any action, because I know when you voice action, that's when they call on you. So I sort of snuck my way around it, sort of gauging who cares about me. A little bit of that attention seeking, but not attention seeking like it is attention seeking. Do you care enough about me that if I tell you that I don't want to live anymore, you're going to actually say something, or are you just going to be like, man, that sucks? Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So I was navigating that, gauging, and unfortunately there were some people where the people who I'd wanted it to maybe sort of stick more to it didn't, and then the other ones I'd gauged that I didn't expect did a little bit more like, hey man, no, calm down, let's go do something. Yeah. But ultimately still, I didn't feel valued enough, like you said, and I didn't feel loved, so I was like, I gotta end it. Yeah. Because if I don't love myself, who's gonna love me?
I just think it's so cool how God brings you through things. And if you're somebody who's not a Christian and you don't really understand, or you have expectations for how the Christian world works, a lot of the ideas and dogmas out there that God will solve all your problems for you. God's just like a magic genie. You just send a prayer and he'll fix it. But
that's not how it happens. I prayed.
Yeah. The thing about God is he walks with you through your circumstances to help refine who you are and show you who you are in the midst of things. And the people I talk to on a regular basis that are trying to figure out what exactly their purpose is, and if you look at any movie trope whatsoever, it's always an issue of going through something really bad, finding out your strengths in it, and then championing people that are going through the same thing once you've gotten to the other side.
And that's what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah, and I just think it's so cool because, you know, we go through life and we try and equip ourselves in all these different ways that we think we need to in order to have an impact and influence and to have purpose. Right. And yet all the stuff we go through, all the close calls and all the hurt and all the childhood anguish and difficulties, you know, we think, okay, I just need to separate myself from this in order to do something of consequence. But I just want to encourage you guys, if you're in the middle of it right now, and you don't feel any hope, and I don't know how comforting this is, like maybe you can help me have a gauge with this, but all the stuff you're going through is stuff that's going to be part of a story that helps multitudes of other people once you finally get past it. Because I know in my own regard, you know, just thinking like, what exactly is hope? When you're going through something really bad and you can't see out of the hole, like, why should I even have hope? What is hope? But just like you were saying, you started thinking about Sean Luke's family. You started thinking about your family and your friends. You started thinking about all the people that would experience what you just went through yourself.
And it was unfair.
Yeah. And, you know, just thinking about purpose, it's like, well, what's the purpose of your testimony? What's the purpose of that person who has touched you in a weird way when you were younger and you haven't told anybody about it? Is it designed for hurt? Am I just supposed to feel hurt and not do anything with it?
Or if you are the person that was doing the touching and you feel
Yeah.
you could be the one causing trauma for individuals and, hurting others and feel like you're not worth it and things of that nature. And some others would condemn you and be like, no. But, I mean, anybody can get redemption as long as you want it.
Yeah, and something you said also was that as you were going through this, there were certain ways that people would try and help, like the wah, 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 wah of the counselors, and some people did it in a way that didn't really help. But there were ways that really spoke to you, and there was a lot of stuff that was thrown at the wall, and you're like, oh, this helps, this helps, this helps. And something that I've learned about God personally is that you can't pour from an empty cup. You can only pour out what you've already been given.
Right.
I mean, love God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, and love others as you love yourself and have been loved. I added that last little bit for context. And I just think it's so cool. Not that you went through all that stuff, but what you've gotten from it and how you've learned to give that same thing to other people. Earlier when you were talking about, I just don't really know what my purpose is. I really think you do.
Maybe.
I think you've already got a handle on it because you've received and you know of consequence what has value in that. And you've already experienced it.
Yeah.
And there's still stuff you're going to experience. But I just want that to be encouraging for you guys too, that what you're experiencing, there is another side. What you're experiencing does have a purpose, not just to be crappy and sucky,
right.
but, for everything you're experiencing, there's always somebody else out there that's experiencing it too, if not worse.
Worse. And that was, I was going to bring that up. That's another thing that as I was reflecting after the second attempt, and I'm going to say attempt because like I said, some people might say it's not, but after that, I did think about, I got legs, I can walk, I can feel my toes. My mom's not trying to kill me. I don't, I don't have friends that are betraying me. I'm not getting slaughtered out in the middle of the street or used in sex trafficking or as a drug mule, or I'm not living in a third world country where things are a little bit worse. I'm not dealing with things like that. So, on the core concept of things of me as a person, it's really more on an emotional level. So that shouldn't be that bad to work with, because if I had to deal with all that other stuff and this, that would be really tough. But if I'm feeling really, really sad and I just feel like I can't get up, well, maybe I just need to get up and walk outside. That's sort of my, me taking my brain and trying to stretch it to see what actually works. And I guess another thing I want to say too is because we did speak about God and things of that nature, and I'm a true believer, but for other individuals out there who don't believe, and you might be watching this in any way, shape, or form, when I say this, take it at your own pace and don't feel like because I've went through it only because of God. That is my truth. I do feel like God was a major, major role into it. But I truly do believe that if you aren't a believer, there's still a potential for you to come out on the other side if you want it. You got to want it. You got to find a reason to want to be here. Not because somebody told you to stop. Not because you saw something on TV and you want to stay awake till next Thursday and see it. And if it sucks, maybe that's the night. You got to want it. And if you don't want it, I hope you find a way to want it. I hope something bumps into you like an unspoken, blessing, and you find a way to stay here just a little bit longer until you go, well, you know what? I think I'll stay.
Yeah, I think something that if you're looking for something pragmatic to do, as fundamental as it sounds, start building a foundation of thankfulness. Now, what I mean by that is if you think about a house where it's got the cement or the brick foundation, just do it one brick at a time. What am I thankful for? When my wife and I first got together, I would hug her and I would say things like, I'm so glad you have all your limbs. I'm so glad you don't have scoliosis.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, there are things that you just take for granted. I am so glad that
I'm not diabetic.
Yeah. I'm so glad that I have a dad that cares to stay in a relationship with me, even though it's been rocky. Because some people didn't have a dad that stayed in a relationship with them.
I'm glad that me and my dad wind up developing a relationship, my biological dad. That was a journey too.
Yeah. When my wife and I argue, it's frustrating, obviously, and I really get... sometimes I feel hopeless at my communication skills, but I'm thankful that I have a wife that cares to stay in the fight.
Right. Instead of just, sort of like, all right, well, we're done. I'm thankful for a lot of things. And because of those things, I wind up, I guess, opening my eyes and my ears a bit more, allowing myself to embrace those things also did help because another piece of advice I would give to the individual, if you are feeling as if you don't want to live on no more, just try to feel. You've maybe been feeling the wrong thing for too long. Maybe you've been feeling this remorse and regret and regret and this guiltiness and this sadness, and you're just feeling like, this is it. This is all it is. But it isn't. There's joy out there. You ever watch somebody walk into a glass pane they didn't see there? That's hilarious. I'm sorry if that hurts that person. That's funny. That type of joy, there's more of that out there. There's melancholy feeling, like watching sad, happy ending animes. There's a thing. I know I keep talking about anime. But, playing video games, spending time with people, taking pictures of people who you love or having, happy moments, writing, maybe inspiring others. What it looks like getting to those steps, definitely, I don't know what that is. And that's your own journey. But there are other emotions than depression and sadness and sorrow. You just got to be able to be comfortable enough and allow yourself enough to go, you know what, today I want to wear something else. Let's wear happy. I don't know what that is, but let's wear it. And go try to make yourself happy. If it takes your credit card and you got to spend a little bit more, spend it. One more match.
One more game. One more game.
So, yeah.
Oh, man, that's so good for gamers. So,
I want to make that into a shirt.
A suicide prevention shirt.
That would be great.
One
more game.
Let's coin that. That's so good.
Do it. When do I do it? Should we do it? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else?
Do you have anything else?
I mean,
have you asked anything? Have you asked everything that you wanted?
I'm sure there's more, but there's
always part 3. I'm just kidding.
Part 3. Let's go. Let's go.
One more game.
Well, guys, thank you for hanging out with us. Christian, thank you for hanging out and talking and being honest.
Thank you for having me back.
I know some of the stuff that you were talking about was shocking and potentially difficult to talk about. I really admire your bravery. It's weird to call stuff like that bravery because it's just like it happened. All I'm doing is talking about it. But still, talking about the areas where you're tempted to feel shame is really brave. And my pastor said that you can't give something away unless you own it.
And own it, I shall.
I really appreciate you owning it. But guys, thank you for hanging out. If you got something good from this, give the video a like so it can get in front of more eyeballs, and share it with somebody that you think might help it, even if they just want to share it with somebody else.
Even if it's just a clip of it. It doesn't have to, because, it could be a little intimidating, especially with us with ADHD or ADD.
I mean, who wouldn't want to stare at us for an hour?
Oh, man. Not me. I'm just kidding. But no, if there's a clip that you're like, man, this is really good for this moment, clip it. I don't know, get a YouTube downloader or something.
Yeah. And if you feel like there's something that resonated with you, let us know in the comments. If there's something that you feel like we didn't address that should be addressed, let us know in the comments. But we appreciate you guys and we love you. And I guess we
love you. Speak your truth. One more game.
We'll see you next time. One more game.
One more game.